and let's share a screen, and let's do that.
Phil, I'm going to go on mute because I've got the kids in the background that'll argue over anything at the moment. So rather than
No
disturb anything.
problems. No, I've got a guy cutting up tiles in the next room, so if you hear that, I do apologise. There's nothing louder than cutting tiles with a saw. Okay, so you can all see a screen, can you? Just give it a thumbs up. Excellent. Okay, so this one is about this particular challenge. I wanted to put this one in because I feel it's an area where financial advisors in the UK are missing a big trick. And I think it's largely down to perception, because there is the perception of what we believe a webinar actually is. Let's put some skin on the bones of that and just have a look at a little bit of background first of all. So 2020, what did it teach us? Straight away, when the market took a dive, it was really important to get in touch with the clients, but what was really interesting is the financial planners who got in touch with their clients really quickly found that most of their clients were saying, oh, I expect you're getting in touch to tell us the market has crashed and all the rest of it. Don't worry, we're cool about it. But it was just the human touch, just getting in touch with people, seeing how they are at a human level, really seemed to work well. What is amazing is there are still quite a lot of financial planners who've still not got in touch with their clients, even just to say hello, how are you during the pandemic. And I think we've always known this, that communication is something that really needs to be quick when important stuff happens. And it's always been a hobby horse of mine that we don't communicate enough with our clients in this particular profession. You know, that the once a year review just doesn't really cut it anymore. The 2 times a year newsletter doesn't really cut it anymore. And whilst there are some financial planners who communicate with their clients almost daily, if not weekly, some might argue that's a bit too much, but generally speaking, compared with other countries, we don't communicate with our clients anything like as much as other financial advisors around the world. What else did 2020 teach us? Well, it turns out that doing meetings with clients online works just fine. If I had a quid for every financial planner who's told me, oh no, financial planning can only ever be done face-to-face with clients, can't be done online, I wouldn't need to be doing this. And it turns out that quite a few consumers and people, now they discovered that you can get financial advice online over Zoom and Skype and Teams and so on, that is really appealing to them. And a number of advisors have told me that simply because they started telling people that they now offer online financial planning, they've ended up with referrals as a direct result of that as well. It's also meant that we've all been thrown into new areas of technology. I think use of Zoom and Teams and Skype was, you know, it was going to happen anyway, and it was happening anyway. The whole COVID things just kind of accelerated that as well. But we are starting to discover new areas of technology which we can use as part of our communications. For example, video email. I'm starting to see quite a few advisors using video email in their day-to-day communications with clients, introducers. Instead of typing out an email, you record a video and send it. And there are some fabulous tools to enable you to do that. My favorite one is one called BombBomb, B-O-M-B, B-O-M-B. And the support they give you and the help and the advice and techniques and tactics to use video in your email is just off the scale. So we're starting to see some new stuff emerging. The number of financial advisors doing podcasts is starting to pick up as well, which is really good, quite exciting. And we're seeing more videos as well. But I think something else has really come to light as well, is that largely because of COVID, some of the traditional marketing things that we used to do, we just can't do them anymore. We can't do seminars, we can't go to trade shows, we can't go to networking events. So we need to have a bit of a rethink or a reinvention. Some of you may know Elaine Milne. And I spotted her, she posted this on LinkedIn, I think it was. We finally produced our very first video email for clients yesterday, and they love it. Taken a while to pluck up the courage, but it's well worth it. And she was getting comments like this from a few clients, simply because It was new. It was a little bit different. And I think, because financial planning is a very professional environment, we kind of agonize a bit over perhaps the quality standards, and maybe this has got to be broadcast BBC quality, and it really doesn't. The recipients aren't really interested in that sort of stuff. They're just interested in seeing you, hearing from you, hearing what you have to say as well. So it worked for Elaine, and I know that more and more advisors are looking at different ways using technology to interact and engage with their clients. Now, this is one of my favorite slides at the moment. I love showing this one. This idea that we really should be using all of these approaches in all of our marketing simply because they're there. The idea that we should be posting content absolutely everywhere is just not sustainable in the short term or even the long term. If you happen to focus on a particular target client, like heart surgeons, my favorite example at the moment, and you know that heart surgeons use YouTube a lot, or they like to listen to podcasts a lot, then focus your efforts in those particular areas. But the idea that we should be doing all of this all the time is just nonsense. And I think financial advisors have got a lot of expertise, a lot of credibility, and a lot of experience in many cases. And just to keep pushing content out all across the internet, I think in many ways cheapens your value in many respects. However, so we're going to look at webinars. So just one little strand of that that map there today. So those of you that haven't heard this story or have heard it, I hope you don't mind me just briefly explaining it again, because it is quite irrelevant. So a few months ago, middle of last year, middle of COVID, I get a letter in the post from my mum. And inside this is a little 4-inch long leather-bound booklet created by Gordon's as in gin. Now, I'm a gin lover. I've won gin cocktail making competitions. So my mum thought I'd like to have this. Turns out it was my dad's. They were married 45 years, and she said that in the entire 45 years of their marriage, this little book was sitting in his bedside drawer, and he never took it out, and she never saw it, never asked him what it was, where he got it from, or anything like that. So it was obviously something he got hold of before they even met. Now, when I received this, I got in touch with Diageo's archivist, because Diageo own Gordon's now. And I said, look, I've been given this thing. Can you tell me anything about it? And they said, my goodness, it's a marketing piece that Gordon's put out, and it's 100 years old. And the idea of it was to be, yes, a marketing piece to attract new people into the world of Gordon's gin, but also to add value to people who already love Gordon's gin. And basically what it is, it's a little book, and here it says this little book is not intended solely as an advert, but has been compiled at the repeated request of many of our friends who desire to offer the proper beverages to their guests. And it basically is full of gin cocktails and how to make them, what's not to like. So that is an educational piece of marketing. And I'm really, really keen on educational piece of marketing. And it's no surprise that seminars are educational marketing, podcasts are educational marketing, YouTube videos are educational marketing, and webinars are educational marketing. And there's a reason why educational marketing really works. And I believe it can be a key part of your value ladder. And value ladders is something else that I bang on about. And again, if you've not been on any of the other presentations, I'll just quickly explain what I mean by a value ladder. Let's take the value ladder for many dentists these days. They really want you to pay for the ongoing care plan. They really want you to get out your credit card and pay for the expensive stuff, the cosmetic surgery. But to get you into their world, so that patients get to know them and like them and trust them, they give away stuff. So free teeth cleaning is very popular these days. Free teeth whitening, just to get you in the building, treat you really well, give you a great service, get a video testimonial off you, so that it becomes significantly more likely that you will continue up the value ladder with a dentist. Same goes for a chiropractor. Get you in the building, free consultation, maybe a free massage, but they really want you to pay for the ongoing care plan and maybe that really expensive long weekend wellness retreat at some fancy hotel with yoga, meditation, celebrity chefs, and all that good stuff. But to get you into that frame of mind, they need to give you some free stuff to start with. Value ladder for a gym usually starts the same day of the year, January the 1st. They want to get you in, give you a free trial so that you start spending money with them over time. Now, this is my value ladder for financial advisors. This is what I do to attract people into my world. When I meet financial advisors at conferences, at events, networking events, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, first place I point them to is our Facebook group. Or the marketing group, because I mean that Facebook group. When I first started it, I had no idea what it would grow into today. Just literally an indispensable resource of cool stuff for financial advisors. Then I'll give away perhaps ebooks, e-guides. I've got my scorecard as well. We'll talk more about scorecards another time. Then we progress up to webinars and books. The stuff in green is always free. The stuff in blue is either free or chargeable. The stuff in black is always chargeable. The stuff in red is very expensive. And, you know, if all I put on my website was, hey, financial advisors, come on my long weekend retreat where we take a deep dive into financial planning, marketing, it's going to cost you a few grand. No one's going to take me up on that because no one knows who I am. No one's experienced anything else that I've done. So we need to throw out a few lead magnets, for want of a better word, to encourage people into my world. Ideas for financial advisors value ladder, you know, broadly can be very, very similar. You don't need to do all of these things, but I would suggest most financial advisors should have 2 or 3 or 4 things off this list. As part of their value ladder, free e-guides that can be downloaded from your website. Write a book, an audio book, a scorecard. Scorecards are proving to be amazing. But all of these things gradually increase in value till we reach the financial planning. Yet when you think about it, when you look at most financial planners' websites, the only thing they offer on their website is financial planning. Yet you have so much expertise, so much credibility that you could take elements of that expertise and turn them into, or repurpose as the phrase is, into something else of value that you can actually give away or charge as you see fit. And let's go straight to the top there. There are a lot of financial planners in the United States now who started off doing seminars and workshops and weekend events as marketing tools to attract in new clients. But they now do them as chargeable events, and they don't actually do any financial planning. They literally, all they do, they make their living putting on financial planning weekend retreats where they teach people everything they need to know. And they get guest speakers, they have great food and so on and so forth. And there's one guy I know, he does a quarterly weekend wealth symposium, he calls it, and he charges $20,000 a place for his weekend symposium. So there are all sorts of different ways that financial advisors can take their expertise and turn it into other things. But obviously today we're looking at this one here, which can be something that you offer for free to attract clients, or something that you offer free to add value to existing clients, or something to build relationships with professional connections, or it can be something chargeable. Now, most financial planners are sort of shy away a bit from webinars, from what they perceive a webinar to be. And there's a very good reason for that, because, and I'm sure you have all experienced this, where you go onto a webinar and you get an hour of content, then you get an hour of upsell. And that's, and you know, usually the US guys and girls do that, and you get quite a lot of that in Australia and New Zealand as well. And to many of us in the UK, that doesn't quite work with our quite delicate tastes in the UK. And what financial planner would want to do any sort of upsell either? So, but I think we have this perception that this is what it's all about. I think there's also a perception that it's quite hard to organize and to get people to turn up to. So what we're going to do, start off today, is get you into a position over the next 3 weeks where you are ready to roll. If not, you're already planning it, but I'm going to give you everything you need to get your webinar not just a one-off, but an ongoing one as well. And this is why, because most financial advisor marketing gets unpredictable results, it's unscalable, it's pretty random, it's broadly ineffective, and that's why we tend to rely on referrals. And all we end up doing is it's just stressful lead gen. And I know there are plenty of financial planners who don't want any more leads. There are one or two who make that extraordinarily clear in our Facebook group, and that's fine. But the fact that questions about lead generation, unbiased, vouch for, Uncle Tom Cobley and all, that's why those questions keep on coming up, because for the most part, financial plans haven't really got a really clear documented plan that they can use and turn on and turn off as and when they need it. And because of that, we tend to get unpredictable results most of the time. But wouldn't it be cool if our marketing did produce predictable results, was scalable, in other words, we could turn it on or off as and when we see fit, is strategic, does work, and makes us feel very confident about our marketing. And really, the most interesting thing is, out of all marketing activities that financial advisors do, there are only two things, in my view, that actually tick all the boxes in the right-hand column, and they are seminars and webinars. We can't do seminars right now. We will be doing them again, I believe. But webinars is really the only one that ticks all those boxes. There are many, many businesses in a multitude of different industries all around the world who have never really thought about having a proper marketing strategy, who get to the point where they've almost got to close, they're almost going to go bust, and someone says to them, for goodness sake, the last throw of the dice for you ought to be a webinar. And they've run webinars, and it has not only saved their business overnight, it has catapulted their business into an amazing future. So we need to have a look at why that is. And here's something else that's really important. The work that I've done, and the work that Michael Kitces in the State has done, where we've looked at what are the top performing marketing activities for different types of advisors. For top performing advisors, and those that are successful, the things on the list there, on the left-hand side there, are consistently top performing marketing strategies. For new financial advisors or financial advisors who need a bit of help, the things on the right here are the tools that seem to work consistently. And I love the fact that good old-fashioned old school stuff like leaflet drops and things like that, and sponsoring roundabouts, still work really, really well. But look at the two that are particularly common to both lists, and we've got webinars. So for webinars, read client events but are online. I'm not sure whether webinar is the right word for us in the UK, but that's what it is, and it's an online client event in some shape or form. Now, it's worth just having a look at some of these things on those lists and measuring them against a few things. And the things that in an ideal world we want to have is our marketing to be low cost, to be nice and easy, that gets predictable results, can be turned on and off, and actually works. So let's have a look and see which ones tick those three core ones: low cost, predictable, and effective. Let's just pick those three. And what we tend to find is that things like networking, I'm not going to go through all of this, it's low cost, it's free, you don't get predictable results unless you know what you're doing, and it's arguable over whether it's effective or not. LinkedIn, very low cost, it's not simple unless you know what you're doing. It's not predictable unless you know what you're doing. Yes, it can be scalable if you pay for advertising, but yes, it's really, really effective. Seminars, low cost if you know what you're doing. Is it simple? No. Is it predictable? Yes. It always works if you follow the model of how to put on seminars. You get predictable results, and it's scalable, and it works, and so on and so forth. But let's have a look at that one at the bottom. Yes, it's webinars. Webinars is the only one that ticks all of the boxes. We get quite close with LinkedIn, seminars, referrals, and writing books, but webinars is the only one that ticks those boxes. So What are those three got in common? They're all educational, just like my dad's little gin thing. So there's a bit of a theme going on here: low cost, predictable, effective, and educational as well. So it makes you wonder why we don't do more of it. So let's have a closer look at what's going on here. The benefits are frankly amazing. If you decided that you were going to commit your entire marketing efforts into just webinars, you could get away with doing all your marketing in 1 hour every 3 months. Yeah, that little, but it's that effective. I would advocate that most financial advisors ought to do a monthly webinar, if not a weekly webinar, and I'll explain how that could work in a minute or two. Webinars are cheap, if not free, to put on. There's no travel, there's no hotel to book, there's no lunch to have to think about, no special dietary requirements to think about as well. You are speaking one to many. It is highly scalable. People only turn up to webinars if they are actually, if the topic being talked about is appealing. If you put on a seminar, you always run the risk that there'll be people just turning up for the free lunch or the breakfast. So by definition, when you put on a webinar, only the right people turn up. They are getting value from an expert. That's the same as putting on a seminar. And when you do webinars, you also have the opportunity to work with other people. So you could invite other speakers to come on board and work with you. Now, that is particularly good with webinars. One of the questions I get asked about seminars, financial advisors always ask me, should I have a guest speaker? And there's a few sort of usual suspects that people like to invite to seminars. Justin Urquhart Stewart, for example, you know, the guy with the red braces and the red bow tie, he's very popular at financial advisors seminars. And the reason he's very popular is because he's very good. And if you invite a guest speaker in who's very good, you are running a really big risk, because who do you think everyone's going to want to go and talk to and get a selfie with at the end of your seminar? Justin. He's very charismatic. Whereas if you get in a guest speaker on a webinar, that can't happen. Makes it very, very difficult. So guest speakers work better on webinars than they do on seminars. If you put on a webinar, sorry, it establishes you as an expert, as an authority. People get to see the whites of your eyes for a short while, albeit on screen, so it builds trust. Webinars are highly engaging. That said, I hope no one here is falling asleep. It enhances your brand value, it becomes part of your overall proposition, and it is an amazing source of high quality leads. And it's also a relationship building thing as well. And at the end, there is always a natural next step. So the benefits of putting on webinars are just absolutely awesome. There's also a few numbers behind this as well. 73% of marketers agree webinars are second only to live events for generating high quality leads. That goes up to 100% when you target existing clients. So webinars are not just about attracting new clients in, they are in many ways possibly more value to add value to existing clients. Up to 40% of your webinar attendance is made up of qualified leads. I would argue that it's actually higher than that. And 56% of webinar attendees take clear action afterwards. And I've seen multiple proof of that time and time again. And in my own experience, 56% is on the low side. When it comes to seminars, if you're not getting 25% of your audience wanting to talk to you afterwards, then you've made a big mess up somewhere along the line. You should be getting 80% or more people wanting to talk to you afterwards when you put on a seminar, particularly if you follow a particular model. And by 80% wanting to talk to you, I mean they either talk to you there and then on the day, or they send you a message on the day, or they phone you up within a couple of weeks afterwards. And I know one financial advisor in Weston-super-Mare who consistently over a period of 5 years used to get best part of a 100% conversion rate after his seminars. So 56% for webinars, I think, is actually on the low side. You should be getting much, much higher than that. So this stuff works. And just one example from a guy in the United States, and I know the United States, they're really, really big on educational marketing, really big. But this guy, Jeff, decided to put on his first webinar, never done it before, chose his date, through advertising, his email list, through professional connections. He got almost 400 people register. Now, I want to say straight away that you don't have to have 400 people registered for your webinar. If you decide I want 10 people to show up to my webinar, or I want 5 people to show up to my webinar, and you get 5 people show up, happy days. Job done. So this idea that you have to have hundreds of people on your webinar, just put that out of your head. Nevertheless, Jeff was going big. He got a lot of people turned up. 76 people actually showed up for the live webinar. Out of the registration, I would argue that out of 377, 76 is pretty low. Nevertheless, 76 people showed up for his webinar. 3 people scheduled a call during the webinar, 3 more within 2 days. Those 6 calls had $2.2 million in instantly investable assets, and there was around 4.5 million hanging around that potentially he could have helped out with. And 3 people immediately wanted to invest $1 million of assets. Had he not done that webinar, that would not have happened. So, and there are countless examples of how this happens. So to me, that's an interesting example. And he learned from that. He thought, well, blimey, if I can pick up, a few million in assets off the back of 76 people, yet 377 had registered, I need to up my game a bit. And there's all sorts of ways of making sure that the people who register actually turn up. But he'd never done one before. This was just thought, right, I'll give it a go. Let's see what happened. So different types of webinar model that you can use. There is the traditional model, which you may actually have been on one of these, where it's a really large group of people, anything from a few hundred to a few thousand people. No one's got their cameras on at all, not even the speaker. It's the speaker is just doing a straight screen share of information, 50% content, 50% uphill. The thing is upsell, free to attend, it's live and recorded. That is the traditional webinar, which scares the daylights out of most UK-based financial advisors. And that's absolutely fine. However, I wouldn't discount that model once you have got used to doing a few of these, because there is no earthly reason why, once you've got your own model and it's working, you might be thinking, okay, so I've been doing some weekly or some monthly educational webinars for our clients, but maybe I might take up Phil's idea of having a weekend wealth symposium for my clients. So maybe it would be appropriate, now that I've established a reputation with my webinar viewers, that I could actually do a variation of this, where I do some high content and then I literally upsell my weekend retreat. So that's an option. A few yards down the line, I would suggest you don't go near that sort of model for quite a few months, if at all, but it's always an option to you. A variation on that model is, again, medium to large group, no cameras, but the host has their camera on. Again, a straight screen share of information, but possibly with an interactive whiteboard as well. So I could stop sharing my screen right now and go back to my camera, and I could have a whiteboard behind me here maybe, and I could draw something out. Now, one of the great things about doing live seminars, one of the best techniques in a live seminar is where you do live case studies, live financial planning, where you've pre-arranged with somebody who's in the audience, say, look, could we use you as an example? And there's always somebody amongst the people who register who are more than happy to be a guinea pig on the day. So when you do a live seminar with a good old-fashioned flip chart or something like that, actually drawing numbers on a board really engages people. And there's no reason why you can't do that on a webinar as well. So again, the variation on that is you maybe make it 85% content and then a very professional offer upsell on the back of that. It's free to attend. It is live, but there is no recording. And the fact that there is no recording means that you can, when you're marketing this, you can say to people, look, there will be no recording. If you want this fantastic value today, you have to attend live. And that kind of gets a lot of people's attention. So that's another permutation on the traditional model. A new model is a small to large group. So small can be anything from 5 people to dozens of people. Let's put it that way. Again, no cameras on, screen share of information, 100% content, no sales, nothing like that at all. Free to attend, live and recorded. Now you think about that as a model for a financial advisor. If you're doing it as an ongoing thing, there is of course no earthly reason why you couldn't put a recorded version on your website and offer it to people as a kind of lead magnet, so that when people visit your website, you can see, look, watch our recent client webinar where we talk about XYZ. So use it as a lead magnet as well as an ongoing value-added thing or lead generation tool as well. A new model variation on that is a small to large group, no cameras, screen share of information, 100% content, but people pay to attend, live and recorded. Now, you've all paid to attend today, so that model works. It's as simple as that as well. So really what I'm going is, whilst this particular model is probably the one that most financial advisors are going to go with, there are various permutations on the theme, and it's entirely up to you how you use this, how you want it, what's appropriate to your business, your objectives for your business, your objectives for how you want to use this. Is this to attract clients? Is it to add value to existing clients? Is it to engage with professional connections? Is it a bit of everything? You figure out what's going to work for you. In terms of promoting the thing, which we'll come on into a minute, that's all the same. But one way or another, you need to come up with okay, what's the kind of model that's actually going to work for me? You don't have to call them a webinar. You can call them other things. And this is another model as well. A thing called a boardroom briefing, which I know some clients would think, well, that sounds quite cool. Let's go for that. Again, small group, straight information share. The host's camera is on, no upsell. It's live. It's free or chargeable. And the variation on that, again, the only variation on that is everyone's got their cameras on. So maybe you've got 8 to 10 people, high value clients, or maybe just professional introducers, you decide. But then it becomes more like a meeting, hence the word boardroom briefing. So you can see there's various permutations on the theme. And once again, I think that most financial planners could probably do either of those kind of models as well. It works equally well. Another model you can think about is the interview model, which is exactly the same as any of the ones that we've just been talking about, where you literally interview someone, and you could interview them over Skype, or in other times you could interview them face-to-face in an office or in a hotel, wherever you want to do it. And that makes for quite a nice approach as well. So again, if you wanted to interview Justin Urquhart Stewart or somebody, anybody with relevant expertise and relevant background that you think your clients would find valuable, you can do that. Look at what Martin Bamford is doing at the moment with his YouTube channel and his podcast. I mean, I don't know how he finds all these people, but personal finance authors, academics, a whole bunch of different people. So he's interviewing them for his podcast, for his YouTube channel, but you could do exactly the same thing for your webinars as well. Now, you need to have 2 clear objectives. This is exactly the same as if you were putting on a seminar. I would urge you to have 2 clear objectives before you do anything else. And those 2 objectives are, what am I aiming to achieve with this? And what do I want the attendees to do afterwards? In terms of what am I aiming to achieve? Is it greater communication with my clients? Is it to attract more clients? Is it to strengthen relationships with existing clients, connections, introducers? Is it to highlight an area of expertise and skill that I've got that nobody really knows about? Or is it just a pure added value exercise? It is worth really thinking about that before we embark down this road. What do I want attendees to do afterwards? Do you want them to refer you? Do you want them to make an appointment for something or other? Do you want them to give a testimonial? Anything. What do you want them to think about? What do you want them to buy? What do you want them to do as a result of attending your webinar? Even if that webinar is a one-off, or even if it is a weekly webinar that follows a similar format. Really, really important. When you look at seminars and webinars, the ones where they consistently don't get bums on seats, you can almost always track it down to a lack of clarity over the original objectives. So the more clarity about you have about what you're aiming to achieve, the more focus you'll get and the greater the likelihood that you'll have of success. How long should you plan this thing? I'd give it 3 months. Now, it doesn't have to be 3 months. I say 3 months because the thinking about it, the general faffing around, the general making a few notes, thinking about the format, do I want a guest speaker? What do I want them to do afterwards? You know, with the best in the world, you've still got a business to run, you've still got the day job, so your webinar might not necessarily be at the top of your priority list. When I say to people who are about to put on their first seminar, I always say give it 5 months, because again, there's a lot of faffing around to do, but bring it down to 3 once you've done it. But with webinars, a good starting point is 3 months, but hopefully something like this particular presentation and what we're doing over the next 3 of these, we can narrow this down and make it a lot shorter. In fact, as I said, I would like you to be ready to rock at the end of 21 days, simply by following the stuff I'm going to be talking about. But if you're going to start from scratch and you're just watching this for your own amusement, and you think, okay, we might do a webinar later in the year, I reckon give it 3 months to maximize the opportunity. Best time and day for webinars tends to be Wednesdays around 11 a.m. Not too early, not too late, and it seems to suit most people. But what I would, though, is just be guided by your clients. Never ceases to amaze me when financial advisors are putting on seminars, they never bother to ask their clients, look, we're thinking of putting on a seminar. Is there a particular day of the week that would be better for you? Do you prefer Saturdays? Do you prefer Mondays? This kind of thing. Ask your clients, and also ask them, just out of interest, what topics do you think would be of interest to you if we put on a seminar or a webinar? Time and time again, I have ideas for seminars and webinars that I think financial advisors are going to be interested in. Time and time again, when I actually bother to do the research and say, here's 6 or 7 different ideas I've got, tell me which ones you might be interested in coming along to, they almost always choose the ones that I think they are least likely to go for. So doing a bit of research, regular surveys. I don't know if you do surveys with your clients, but regular surveys are really, really important on all aspects of stuff like this. But broadly speaking, 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, no more than 90 minutes, absolute tops. Then we've got to think about things like this. How often are we going to do it? Is it a one-off? What are we going to talk about? So what we're going to talk about is going to be generally guided by your objectives. Am I going to use a script? Am I going to use PowerPoint? Am I just going to ad-lib it as we go? Which webinar model? What platform? And there's a multitude of different platforms, specialist webinar platforms that you can use. They all do the same thing, but they've all got slightly different features, all got slightly different ways of doing the same thing. They also have features depending on whether or not they want what you call it an evergreen webinar, which once it's done once, it's just constantly running on a timer that people can, you pays your money, you take the choice. Quite frankly, Zoom is a good webinar platform as anything else. What we're doing right now today is just a straightforward Zoom meeting. Zoom actually has a separate webinar module that you can plug-in specifically designed for webinars. It costs you like 30 quid, and you can do as many webinars as you like in a month for 30 quid, but you know, peanuts, to be quite honest. You might also want to be thinking about, where do I promote this webinar? Do I build a separate one-page website, a landing page, or do I have a special page on my website? Do I have a booking page? Do I have a thank you page? These are all considerations which we'll get to, but they are things that you need to be thinking about. One of the most important things you need to think about in your planning is what you're going to do afterwards as well, particularly if it's a one-off, and what's the next step. And I'm going to cover some of that in just a minute because it's critically important. And you're also going to think about, do I want to record it, and do I want to turn it into something else as well? Now, what do I mean by repurpose? Some of you will remember a couple of years ago, I did a thing called the Financial Advisor Mastermind and Challenge, where I interviewed something like 32 industry experts and consultants. So we had people like Brett Davidson, Michelle Hoskin, Carl Richards. We had half a dozen financial planners as well. We had a couple of celebrity speakers in there as well. And this thing was dripped out over the course of a week. And it went really, really well. Now, I've still got all those original videos. Each of them are about 45 minutes long. And for want of a better word, they were all webinars, but I did 32 of them. Now, I've still got the original recordings, and one of my plans for this year is to take those original recordings, to transcribe the audio. So I've got all the audio has been turned into text, and turn it into a book. Now, I know straight away that book is going to be probably 3 or 4 inches thick, so I might do it in three different editions. So I've done the webinar, but I can actually turn it into something else of supreme value. And I could sell that book for probably 100 quid a copy, particularly if it's hardback, something like that. So super easy to do. You might also want to think about, okay, if I'm going to do these webinars, maybe I'll give it its own branding. Maybe I'll brand it up a bit, give it a fancy name, something like that. So it becomes not just a marketing tool, not just a communication exercise, but it becomes very much part of my overall business proposition. Content for webinars. What are we actually going to talk about during the webinar? Well, as I just said, one thing, a great idea is ask your clients. Maybe you've got your own ideas, that's absolutely fine. But it is always a good idea to literally ask your clients, and do it as a one-off survey or part of a regular survey, and literally say, we're going to be running some regular seminars in the second half of, regular webinars in the second half of 2021. We've got some ideas for some topics, but just out of interest, tell us what you would like us to talk about. Now, let me give you one example of what I know one financial planner is doing. And he's just south of Manchester. And what he is doing is a webinar every single Monday morning at about 10 a.m. It is aimed at his existing clients and his professional introducers and anyone who wants to sign up. So it's a permanent fixture on his website, so anyone can sign up at any time. And what he does is literally it's 20 minutes long, 25 minutes long sometimes. He does a review of the personal finance pages of the weekend press. Now, think about that for a moment. As financial planners, the weekend press and journalists, they, for the most part, are the people who are educating your clients on personal finance matters. If I know the sort of clients you've got, the chances are they may well read, I don't know, the Saturday Telegraph, the Sunday Times, maybe the Mail on Sunday. And like those papers or not, they have got fairly decent personal finance sections. And those personal finance sections are usually full of articles, full of links to other places. But the simple fact of the matter is your clients are being educated by journalists, where you could argue that really you're the people who should be educating your clients on personal finance matters. So what this particular financial planner does, Monday morning, he after having read the personal finance pages himself, he picks out 3, maybe 4 articles that he read in the personal finance sections over the weekend, and he does a quick review. And so, item number 1 on his webinar on a Monday morning. Hi, folks. Nice to see you. Hope you've all had a great weekend. Did you watch the rugby? Did you see the football? Whatever. He said, right, so here's our review of the weekend press. And the first one I want to talk about is there was an article in the Saturday Telegraph about equity release. Now, you may have heard of equity release. Some of you heard maybe bad things about equity release, but this was a really interesting article. The journalist concerned said this, he said that, but he missed this. And this is my view on this particular article. This is my view on equity release. Then he'll pick something else. Maybe it's about inheritance tax. I guarantee you this coming Monday, he's going to pick anything relevant from the personal finance sections about today's budget. I mean, how hard is that to do? It's not hard at all. You don't need any slides. You don't need any scripts. It's just you've torn it out of the newspaper and you're just doing a quick review. How hard is that to do? But here's the point. The clients, the webinar attendees, they see you as the expert. You are really the person they really need to be listening to about equity release, inheritance tax planning, pension changes, and so on and so forth. Super simple to do, and I'm sure you could probably think of other permutations on that kind of theme. In many ways, we're only limited by our own imaginations as to what we could talk to people about, and it needs almost no preparation at all, because all you need to do is read the article. I'm sure you guys watching this, every time you read an article in the personal finance sections of the press, you'll have your own view on what the journalist is saying. So also another thing you could do is keep a notebook of every question every client ever asks you. I don't know if any of you record client meetings, but that's a nice, easy way to do that. But I'll lay any money that you probably get the same questions asked over and over again. Maybe they're asked in a slightly different way. But the questions that clients ask you in your regular meetings with clients, they are absolute dynamite for webinar content and indeed seminar content as well. Another website you could use is answerthepublic.com, which is a kind of compendium of every question that's ever asked on particular topics on Google and other search engines. So you could go to answerthepublic.com right now and you could type in pensions, and it will show you in a very graphic kind of way hundreds of different ways that people have asked questions about pensions. And again, you could use that as a fantastic source of topics that you might want to use for webinar content. And another great book, They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan, well worth a read. Gives you ideas about how to create content and services for your existing clients. In many ways, if you're going to do webinars, it is actually worth thinking very closely about what is it you do as a business? What result do you help individuals, families, or organizations achieve? Where is your focus? So there's no point in a lifestyle financial planner doing webinars on mortgages for first-time buyers. Yeah, I mean, that's an extreme example, but you get where I'm coming from on that. One of the things we've discovered in the book writing program that we do, and we did the first session yesterday on writing a book, we've discovered that financial advisors, when they start writing their own book, it gives them real clarity around what they do as a business, where their real focus lies. And when you start doing webinars and you start putting together the content for your webinars, again, it gives you a really interesting focus on what you do as a business, what you're passionate about, what you really care about, where your real expertise lies. Because you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, if every financial advisor in the UK did their own webinar, then how do we differentiate yourself? But still, hardly any financial advisors do this in the UK. So, you've got quite a few years worth of mileage before anyone is creeping up behind you. Okay, what else can we talk about on this particular thing? Who to target for your webinars? Again, this depends on your objectives. Is it to attract more clients? Is it to add value to existing clients, build professional connections, enhance the perception of expertise, build local presence, promote other services? There are a variety of different objectives that you might have for this, and that will then help you determine who you want to target. So again, don't think that your webinar has to have 400 people. If you want to just target half a dozen people, but on a reasonably regular basis, start with that. And you get when you do your first webinar and your first half a dozen people arrive, happy days, you'll be really pleased, and then you'll be really keen to do some more. Potential sources of attendees. I'm not going to read this out. You'll get the you'll get the slides, you'll get the video, but there's just a massive source of potential sources of attendees for your webinar, not least of which are your existing clients. And I would urge most people thinking about doing their first webinar, just start with your existing clients. But if you want to start getting fancier and you want to start building your audience up, just the world is your oyster. In the United States, Facebook really is where most people go to find their audience, and that is normally done through Facebook advertising. Facebook advertising is not something that most IFAs in the UK are particularly expert in or have experience in, yet it is astonishingly effective if you've got somebody who can do your Facebook advertising for you and who can turn £1 of your advertising budget into £2 or more in profit or income coming out the other side. So there's lots of different places that you can find people to attend your webinar. My favorite one at the moment is scorecards. My scorecard that I'm using, a scorecard, for those of you not quite sure what it is, it's essentially a quiz stroke survey that you put on your website. Your website visitors take the survey, and it asks questions on some aspect of personal finance. And you ask about 20 questions, 40 questions. At the end of taking it, they get a score based on their answers, and they get a personalized report. To me, this is just the most exciting lead generation tool I've ever come across. And anyone who takes your scorecard gives you an email address as well as the answers to their question. And so they get their report and they get their score, but you also got their name, and you can add them to your potential webinar list as well. We're not covering scorecards in these challenges, but I'm going to mention it in the very last wrap-up one that we do as well. So there's a huge potential source of attendees, but start with your existing clients. Maybe think about incentivizing your existing clients to tell their friends about it as well. Maybe an Amazon voucher or a bottle of wine for everybody who they can get to come along. Professional connections and introducers, clearly they are ripe for that as well. So those are the sort of thing that you want to go for. So those top 4 are the main ones to go for to start with. Start small, get your first couple of webinars under your belt, then start ramping it up if that's an angle you want to go at. How to tell people, again, we could talk all day about the different ways to market it, and in the next session we'll look at some very specific things about marketing your webinar. But you've got all these different things that you could use to promote it, again broadly similar to as if you were doing a seminar. But we don't want you to spend too much money on this. So you've actually got some ready-made tools that you're already using in your business that you can drop it into conversation. So your email signature, put a link to your webinars in your email signature, mention your webinars in your out of office email, mention your webinars in your answer phone message, all these kind of things as well. Mention it as part of review meetings, have a dedicated page on your website. If you're doing social media, mention this. There's a whole bunch of different things that you're already doing that you could just add this to. But you can then start to ramp it up a bit more. as you go forward. So for example, local PR, send out some press releases, say you're introducing a new webinar program, simple stuff like that, that local journalists, they just lap that kind of stuff up. There are also platforms dedicated platforms where you can promote your webinars as well. Eventbrite is the one I think most people know about. Facebook, you can promote your webinars on Facebook. LinkedIn, as you can promote it on LinkedIn's got its dedicated events page. If you have a company page on LinkedIn, built into that is a ready-made events tool that you can use as well. So there's a whole bunch of different ready-made platforms that you can do all this. And I don't want, as I go more into depth in this, I don't want you to think, oh, this is all starting to get a bit complicated. So you can just start with a few emails or some letters to your existing clients so that you get comfortable with doing it and then start to build it up later on. You need to have a registration page, somewhere for people to sign up. In an ideal world, you need a registration page. There is no earthly reason why you can't do the good old-fashioned thing where you send a letter out to clients with a postage paid slip that they literally fill in by hand. Nothing wrong with doing that. Nothing wrong with saying reply to this email if you would like to attend. Nothing wrong with doing that as well. But if you've got a dedicated website page, there are certain techniques that actually really encourage people to sign up. So speak to their concerns. So again, let's use the heart surgeon example. If you're a financial planner and you specialize in retirement planning for heart surgeons, your registration page should say, are you a heart surgeon concerned about your income in retirement? Join us for our forthcoming webinar on how heart surgeons can increase their webinar. That's kind of simplified, but speak to their concern. Speak to what they are worried about. Speak to what you believe they want out of their lives. Aggravate the problem. Maybe put in a little example of a case study, a real client that you have worked with and how you have helped them, and how you have helped them will be revealed in the webinar. Show why you're the expert. One of the biggest reasons people go along to seminars is not the content, but the person speaking. It's really, really powerful. And it's one of the things people usually forget when they're promoting a webinar or a seminar, is to actually talk about the person who's going to be doing the talking. Human beings are drawn to other human beings. So get some of that in there. Simple description of how the webinar will help them. Use some action words. You, as a result of attending this webinar, you will be able to do X, Y, Z. You will understand why equity release is not the way forward for my clients, or how equity release could help some clients like you. A call to action with an incentive. There'll be an Amazon voucher, or there'll be a bottle of wine, or there'll be a prize draw for everyone who attends. And if you want to be fancy, maybe do a quick video as well. Simple stuff like that. Literally a 30-second or a 1-minute long promotional video saying, hi everybody, thanks for visiting our webinar page today. Really looking forward to seeing you when you join our webinar on the 1st of March. You're going to discover how we helped a particular client solve a particular problem, and it's a problem that is common to many of the clients that we have. That kind of thing as well. So that's being fancy, but it really does make a difference as well. In your promotional stuff, whether it's on your registration page or whether it's anywhere else, you want to use techniques that actually influence human beings to take action. I'm not going to go through these right now, but there are 6 things that influence human behavior. And if you want to learn these things in the most entertaining book imaginable, get this book, Yes, by Robert Cialdini. Or just go on to Amazon, type in Yes, 50 Secrets and the Science of Persuasion, and it will teach you how these things here on this list can be used to influence people to sign up for your stuff. There's no trickery. This is just normal human behavior, but how you can use these things to influence. So absolutely fantastic book, works an absolute trick. I'll just give you one example. So one of the ways I get LinkedIn consultancy with financial advisors is when I'm connecting or talking to financial advisors on LinkedIn, one of the things I do is I say the majority, I literally say this in a message to financial advisors. I say the majority of my financial advisor connections have joined my Facebook group or they've taken my LinkedIn scorecard. You should too. It's free. And that's social proof. And in their heads, at a subconscious level, they're hearing, well, other financial advisors are joining his Facebook group. Other financial advisors are taking his scorecard, then I ought to too. And a simple thing, you could employ that technique in your webinars. You can say, many of our clients have attended our previous webinars and they've benefited by this, that, and the other. So show how other people like them are already working with you. Great book, really powerful. And you can use that book as part of all the marketing that you do in your business, not just webinars. As part of your marketing, you could also include a quick quiz, a quick survey, a quick scorecard, just something that will encourage people to take a micro commitment before they sign up for the webinar. Just tap something. And you could even be as simple as, how did you hear about us? And do a little box that says LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. There's mountains and mountains of evidence to show that when people take a micro step, a micro commitment on your website, they are then much more likely to go the distance with you as well. That's why scorecards work so well. Do webinars work? Do they bring in leads? Well, so over the last year, I've been doing multiple marketing workshops for large IFA firms. And I did one, give you just one example. I did one for Schroders Personal Wealth. So I did an hour and a half and all these advisors from Schroders Personal Wealth had signed up for this webinar. And I said to them, stick around to the end of the webinar and I'll give you a link where you can go and get a free copy of my book. And you get that copy, just take my LinkedIn scorecard. The scorecard will show you how well you are using LinkedIn. Just answer a few questions. It'll give you a score and it'll give you personalized advice. I did my webinar. I gave them the link. I said, bye-bye, closed down the webinar. I went to make a cup of coffee. 10 minutes later, I've got 97 people have taken my scorecard and I've got 97 leads potentially sitting in my inbox. So you can use a scorecard or a quiz to attract people to attend your webinar, or you can use it at the end of your webinar to encourage people to take the next step, to interact and engage with you and get some value in some way, shape or form. So it works. Another thing that works on your registration page is testimonials. They do not need to be testimonials for previous webinars that you've done, just testimonials that you've got from clients who work with you. And video testimonials are the best. If you can get those, all the better. I'm a huge advocate of video testimonials on financial advisors' websites, but testimonials for your webinar, absolutely great as well. But get some testimonials on your webinar promotional page as well. But there are testimonials and there are testimonials. Imagine you put on a seminar and someone gives you this testimonial. The venue for Jones & Co.'s seminar was amazing. What occasion, and a lunch was superb. On the surface, that looks like an amazing testimonial. It really isn't at all. The best type of testimonials are this sort of thing. As a result of working with Jones & Co., I now feel completely confident in my income retirement. You should talk to them. Cause and effect testimonials. So this one, on the surface, it looks like a great testimonial for someone's seminar. It's more of a testimonial for the location and the lunch, but this is the sort of seminar. Interestingly, when you ask clients for video testimonials, they don't actually say things like this. What they tend to say is something that's much, much better than this. They tend to say, do you know, working with Jones & Co. has been absolutely superb. They come over like a trusted member of the family. They don't talk down to me. They're not condescending. They talk about the human things. They rarely talk about things like that. You may have quadrupled someone's net worth, but they tend not to talk about that stuff. Now, if people come up with testimonials like this one, then fine, use it by all means. But what you tend to find is, particularly when you put them on video, they tend to talk about the human things. And it's the human things that really resonate with other people. And they work particularly well just on your website, on your webinar registration page, and the same if you're doing a seminar as well. You also want, if you start getting fancy, you want to include a thing called a value stack. Now, this is taking this to the next step. And now let me show you what a value stack looks like. You'll have seen me using something like this. Now, this is something you want to use if you are charging people to attend a webinar in an ideal world. So what you're basically saying is that, yeah, you get the ticket to the webinar or to the seminar or to the event, but you're also going to get all this stuff as well. And the total value of all this stuff is £2,500. But when you sign up for the webinar today, you can get all of that for just £97 or whatever it is. Now, this looks a bit American. It is a bit American, but this is a proven, tried and tested technique that dramatically increases the likelihood that people will sign up for your seminar, your webinar, that kind of thing as well. Where what this is essentially saying is, you're not just going to get the event that I'm putting on, you're also going to get a load of extra value from me. Here is proof that I'm offering you value. And there's proof that there's value because I put a price tag next to it. So that's called a value stack. I said, it does come over as a bit salesy, it does come over as a bit American, but you can modify that to your business. So maybe you have written an e-guide for heart surgeons on how they can increase their value, their income in retirement. You could include that as your one and only thing on your value stack. So what I'm saying is, yes, offer the webinar, but also say to them, you're going to get the webinar, but you're also going to get this one extra thing as well, or these 2 extra things, or these 10 extra things. Doesn't really matter. Just add something extra on top. You decide, it doesn't matter, but add something extra on the top. Okay, so just wrapping up now, quick overview. Use Zoom in an ideal world for most financial advisors. If you're just getting started, use Zoom, absolutely fine. Keep it 90 minutes maximum, but as we've already seen, the guy south of Manchester, he's doing his in 20 minutes. Absolutely fine. Takes almost no preparation at all, but you get what I'm saying. Get on with it. The whole point of this challenge is to encourage you to actually take some action and to do this. The title of your webinar needs a specific, explicit benefit. So if I'm doing a webinar, for example, what do I mean by a specific, explicit benefit? If I'm doing a webinar on how financial advisors can do webinars, this would be the title. It's aimed at the people who I want to turn up. It tells them what they're going to get, and it says how that's going to happen. A clear, explicit description of what is going to happen. Nothing too vague about that at all. Your agenda for your webinar can, broadly speaking, follow this model. This is a model that works. Quick welcome. A quick check that everyone can hear you. Now, that fulfills 2 things. First of all, it does actually do a quick tech check, but what it also does, it actually engages people right from the start. Remember what I did right at the start? I said, can you all see the slide? That was done on purpose, A, to make sure you can see the slide, and to get you either nodding your head, just do something rather than hide in the shadows, yeah? Invite questions. I forgot to invite questions, but you do that as part of your opening bit. Also encourage people to stay to the end, because when you say to them, please stay to the end because you're going to get some great value, or please stay to the end because you're going to get a freebie when you stick to the end. But literally encourage people to stay to the end by asking them to stay to the end. Although hopefully your ideal attendees will have turned up. You wanted to say, look, thanks for turning up. Now, what this webinar today is for, it's really for heart surgeons who are concerned about their income retirement. And if I'm a heart surgeon who's just turned up for this webinar, that will help to reassure me that I'm in the right place. You then, in an ideal world, move into your story, because actually they want to hear about you before they hear anything about. A bit about you. We don't need your life story, but if there's something interesting in your life story, they would love to hear that. How you came to be the person you came to be, how you became a financial planner, just something of interest, because people will buy into you as a person. Remember, people buy people. You then want to have a kind of introduction, a sort of market summary, explain the problem that you're here to talk about, just an outline of what's going down. Then something that's really important, break down belief patterns. That basically means answer people's objections before they ask them. It's a really powerful technique. So if I was doing a webinar on, say, the benefits of equity release, maybe I'm an equity release expert, there will be people who've come to my webinar, A, because they're interested in equity release, but they're also very concerned about it because they read bad stuff about it. And if I'm an expert on equity release, I already know as a financial advisor what their concerns about equity release will be. So what I do is I talk about those things before they bring them up. And that's called breaking down belief patterns. You could also talk about common myths. But also include some downsides of what you're talking about. You don't want to make it appear this is all sweetness and roses. Be honest. So you could actually say, look, there are some myths about equity release, and hopefully I've already addressed them. But let me be clear, equity release is not for everyone, for this, that, and the other. So in other words, come over as ultra professional. Don't come over as someone who says there is only one way to go with this. You must be drawing down money from your property. Show the downsides, prove that you're an expert, prove that you're credible as well. Then start to wrap it up with case studies, proof of what you're talking about, and maybe some stories of existing clients that you have worked with. Then give away your freebie and then offer a consultation call, if that's what you want to do. That model works really well for webinars, and it also works particularly well for seminars as well. Now, the next thing we need to be thinking about is, what do we want them to do afterwards? This is almost the most important bit. Now, if you are just doing a weekly roundup of the weekend press, that's fine. You might not want them to do anything at all, and that is absolutely fine. But if you're doing a webinar as partly something that adds value, and you would actually like people to make some referrals, or you would like some people to suddenly remember that 10 million quid they've got hidden away under the bank, under the mattress, most of you will actually want people to take some sort of action afterwards. So there's a way to do that. And you've got to think about, what post-webinar actions do you want them to do? Do you want them to book a call, in which case you could actually give a link where people could actually book straight into your diary? You want to manage and set expectations. And what I mean by that is, this is where the professional element comes in. And it's quite one thing to say, look, I'd love to, anybody wants to talk to me or have a free half an hour of my time, that's fine. But you, the financial advisor, you want to make it clear, I don't want to talk to anybody. This is what's going to happen. Here's what will not happen. And here's what I'll need from you. And I'll show you what I mean by this in a second. And here's what will not happen is a really important people, because some people will automatically be thinking, if you're offering a free half an hour of your time on as a free consultation, somebody thinking, maybe he's going to try and sell me something or something like that. Again, you want to stop that in the tracks. And this is a set of words that I have seen used. You don't have to use these verbatim, but you can modify this. So this will be on your website or where people sign up for their free consultation. And you almost ask people to agree to this before they have the consultation, because this filters out the ones you don't want. Yes, I understand the primary reason for meeting with Sue Jones, financial planner, is to find out if there's a fit between my needs and what she offers. I confirm that if Sue and I agree that working together is a good idea, I'm ready to start in a particular timescale. And I'm aware that Sue will not charge a fee for this initial call, but that her fees for working on an ongoing basis are X, Y, Z. So what we're doing here is we're actually saying to some people, I don't actually want you. If you can't agree to this, I don't think that we're a good fit. So this is where I'm saying is that, yes, you've done a webinar. Yes, maybe you would like some more clients or some more prospects to talk to, but this is where you are applying a filter, because some people will stop at this particular point. Because, for example, you don't want people booking a call with you, taking up your time and saying, look, Lee, a great webinar this afternoon. Could you just talk me through whether or not I'm being ripped off on my credit card charges? That's not what you want. So the purpose of this or something like this is to stop that happening. What you want is the people who are genuinely interested in what you've been talking about, who are genuinely interested in the expertise that you've got. So what you're looking at there is a fairly extreme end of what I've just been saying, but you could come up with a set of words that say a similar sort of thing. So this is the filter. Another thing you can do at the end of your webinar is please encourage people to refer a friend. It's the good old-fashioned referral process. And once again, I mention this every time I talk about referrals. Please get Bill Cates' book. Get more referrals now. Get this book, okay? This is the book for financial planners on how to get better referrals more often, rather than just relying on referrals coming in. You know, naturally, most financial planners, you do a great job, you're going to get some referrals. But if you want better referrals, then that's the book to read. And so you can apply the knowledge in that book even to how you ask people to recommend your webinar as well. So just to sum up, you could theoretically do all your marketing in 1 hour a quarter or 20 minutes a week, whatever. It's entirely up to you. It's super cheap, no costs that you might normally associate with seminars, no travel, no lunch. You're talking one-to-many. You've heard all this stuff today. Really, the great thing about this is if you're clear about why you're doing this, why you're going to do webinars, then it's a very, very powerful thing. If it's to attract clients, fantastic. If it's to add value to existing clients, fantastic. If it's for something else, fantastic as well. But it becomes part of your proposition. It's not just a marketing tool. It becomes very much part of your proposition, and more so if you brand it up a little bit. So that's the kind of theme that you might want to follow. Maybe building wealth, give it a theme, make it free, maybe do it monthly, do it over Zoom, 45 minutes tops. You could maybe introduce people to your team. You could get your team on it as well. These are the sort of things that you might want to include in a typical advisor webinar model. So again, some of you feeling a bit like this, but here's your homework. What I would do, first thing I would do is say, if you agree with me, okay, I'm going to do a webinar, not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I'm going to do one, put a date in the diary. Just do it. Make it a Wednesday at 11 a.m. to be going on with. And if you're not quite sure about that, put that date in the diary 3 months from today. Okay? We can always bring that date forward, and I hope that is actually what will happen. But this won't happen unless you get a date in the diary. Then think about, who am I going to target for this particular webinar? Do I want more clients? Do I want to start nice and easy by doing something for existing clients? So come up with a target market, literally write it down. And then literally come up with 4, maybe 5 topics or themes that you could, not necessarily will, but that you could do for your first webinar. And in the next session, we'll just take that a step further. Okay, so that's the homework. Put a date in the diary, otherwise it won't happen. Think about who you would like to come along to your first webinar, and think about just simple, maybe 5 topics that you could talk about, but we're eventually probably only going to talk about one of them. Okay, so we're about there. if anybody's got any questions right now, I'm more than happy to take that. Lee has got a question.
Very quick question. I mean, just before I ask you the question, I did actually take it on board what you said at the last session, and I did do a live. It wasn't a webinar, but I did a live news roundup on Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and I'm going to do it every Monday. So I've committed to that. So I did exactly what you said. I went through the Sunday papers. I picked up 3 stories, and it's dead easy because you're reading. And when so you don't have to remember a script. It was perfect. So I did that, and of course it stays on Instagram, so it then stays through the day in terms of getting some hits. But the question I was going to ask you, and I suppose it comes down to this: it may not be a quick answer. The practical, I think, the thing of having a registration page where you can sort of market, push people, and then they register, so you've got it. What's the mechanics of actually doing that? I mean, because I wouldn't know how to build a page or to build a landing page. Are there any tips in terms of who I need to be talking to? I haven't got a specific web designer.
Yeah, let me make a note of that. And in fact, I'll put it in the group as to who we could do that. So just bear with me. There are 1,000,001 different ways of answering that. There are ready-made tools that you can buy. Whoever does your website, do you know what your website is built on? Is it on WordPress or something like that?
WordPress.
Fantastic. So there's almost certainly a WordPress plugin that is a ready-made tool that literally plugs into your website, that you just change the colors, put the questions in that you want to do. So there's almost certainly a ready-made tool to do that. If not, there are plenty of people who can do it, and it'll cost bugger all to do. Either it's not like it's a full rebuild, but there's loads of different ways of doing it.
Okay,
but even if it's down to just simply having a box where somebody expresses an interest. Yes, I'm interested in the next webinar, and they enter their email address, and then you can pick it up from there. So you can make it as complicated or as easy as you like.
All right, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Sorry, Philip, doesn't Zoom, the Zoom webinar package, can it handle all the sort of registrations and everything?
Yep, within the Zoom webinar plugin, they give you a link and a page, and you just literally customize that page to your particular needs, and you can upload your logo, you can change the colors, all that kind of stuff as well. And it is simply as a link, so you could have that on your website. You can say click here to register straight away. So you could do that, yeah, already built into Zoom. And any of the other webinar packages as well. But if you're getting to a no problem, Steve. If you're looking to do this on a regular basis, then it might be something that you want to have a special build on your main website. Okie doke. Okay, we're about done. Thanks very much, everybody. I'll make sure you get the video. It'll be in the Facebook group and elsewhere as well. So take care. Enjoy the rest of the day.